In this episode of Accelerate Slate, an enrollmentFUEL podcast, I am joined by Christopher Kwan of Technolutions. We dive into how Christopher first started working in Slate, learn more about the Slate community model, and find out about his favorite and least favorite questions to answer. We discover more about some of the creative ways Christopher has used and plans to use Slate. And we finish by talking about Summit and what our guest likes to do outside of work. We hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate Slate. You are here today with one of your co-hosts. I'm Susanna Lehman, and we have a very special guest. I guess you could say that it is Christopher here from Technolutions. Is that too soon to say that?
Oh yeah, Christopher from Technolutions here.
Oh, there it
Finally
is.
gonna say that
Yeah.
loud. Yeah,
So we do have Christopher here, Christopher Kwan, in case you are not familiar with him. In case you do not know that joke, that is how Christopher introduced himself on Facebook for years. So we are excited to welcome you to the podcast. So how are you doing today, Christopher?
it's been a great day so far. I've been looking forward to doing this podcast for a while. So I've just been sitting here for the whole day, just going, let's do it. So I'm ready for this.
I
Yeah,
wish we felt that energy from every time we did the podcast. So appreciate you bringing that. So we wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about your role, your adventures in Slate over the years, and give you a kind of an opportunity because you are kind of one of the big faces from Technolutions to talk about some of your experiences doing the community conversations and just connecting with that Slate community. So we'll get started right away. So let's start with you telling us a little bit about your journey in the world of work. So how did you
sure.
start? How did you get where you are today?
How did I get into the world of Slate? So let's start with where I am right now. I'm a senior client support engineer at Technolutions. So I'm part of that community support team, which historically has been known as service or support. And back in the day, that was the team that was working on service desk requests, tickets, etc. And now we've branched off in the new service model, the new support model to helping more in the community through the forums, Slack group, Facebook group, etc. as well. That's where I'm at right now. But my journey in Slate started back in 2013 when I was a student in
Many
college.
moons ago, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I was a tour guide and an admission fellow at a tiny little liberal arts college in Ohio, Kenyon College. And back then, they introduced me to Slate as a supervised user so that I could, log event notes, interview notes, etc. But then also I could start doing additional things such as looking up, event registrations, looking up record data, etc. for anything I needed to do. Fast forward to my senior year, that's kind of when I started thinking about, hey, I want to go into, higher education. I want to, work in admissions when I graduate. Um, let's start thinking about this. That's kind of when they started, showing me the rest of the ropes and what Slate could really do. And that was my introduction to Reader, to applications, to workflows. They showed me how travel recruitment tied in with Slates.
hmm
They sent me to my first college fair, my first high school visit, as a senior in college, which was wild.
But you knew
Uh,
everything, right? You knew the
yeah,
admission
yeah.
process. You know everything about
I
the
was a
school.
I was a tour guide. I was a fellow. I knew all the answers to the questions. Don't ask me those questions now. I don't remember them. Um, but back then, definitely it was great. And I got the chance to to travel outside of Kenyon's County. It's in Knox County. I was able to go to Licking County. Ooh,
Ooh,
big
Licking County.
destination. Yeah. For anyone who's listening to this from Ohio, you know where I'm talking about. Knox, Licking County. For everyone else, I'm assuming you're just either not Googling it or you're Google mapping it right now.
They're very
Uh,
pretty counties in Ohio. If I
they
can stand up for Ohio counties, they're both very pretty.
they are, but in early spring, not so much.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and that kind of got me my taste of Slate in a larger scale. I then graduated and started working. Um, after a short little period of hiatus, I started working at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles, California. Big change from Ohio.
I would say so.
Yeah,
No winter there.
no. And in between that, I was in Hawaii. That was my hiatus period. I call it my eat, pray, love couple months.
Yeah, I want that Hawaii hiatus.
It's great. Yeah. But then at LMU, I was just a counselor there, so I handled recruitment for 9 different states. Did campus tours, campus visits, so worked in Slate on those different areas, did the whole thing. But I kept asking my captains for more and more opportunities to grow and to learn, and they slowly started providing me the different permissions needed to start doing different things. And I think what really clicked for me as like a, oh my gosh, Slate is super powerful, super amazing, yet also super dangerous if you don't know what you're doing moments is they when I discovered the section called test environments, and I accidentally clicked refresh test environment, not knowing what it would do.
Which is a very dangerous thing to do if you're not a sole captain.
Exactly. And then I get an angry message, a couple hours later from another captain, like, what are you doing? Why did you do this? Apparently they were testing a brand new portal over there, and I had just wiped everything. Great.
That's so sad.
Yeah. But they didn't take my permissions away. I still had that power. I don't know. Yeah, they trusted me, I guess.
They just they expected that you would have learned from that mistake, right? And then
Probably.
go forward,
Yeah.
right?
But fast forward to my last couple of years there, I started working more and more with querying. I was helping my director with queries for data for that current year, etc. So I felt like I was getting the hang of how Slate really worked. Being just a user, I felt like back then I was a user. I wasn't even a super user
Right.
at that point. I really got a sense of how Slate could really function for the average person, and and then came the pandemic. I realized really quickly I did not like a virtual recruitment method. It was not for me. So that's when I started looking for different positions, different jobs elsewhere, still looking at higher ed in general, not really figuring out, not really knowing what it could be. But I knew, I definitely did not want to be a counselor anymore because of that non-personal virtual mode where you're sitting in a room, the college fair, and no one shows up because
Right.
it just doesn't
It's,
happen.
it's always a sad feeling.
Yeah. And then I realized that Technolutions was hiring. I had a good friend who was working here at the time, and he mentioned that they were looking for people and that I would be a pretty decent fit. So I applied, and I applied in, I want to say, like late September of 2020, and then got my job offer in early October, started in late October of 2020, and the rest is history. But it was definitely a big adjustment for me, coming from a world of just being a user to suddenly being like told, hey, you have all these permissions. You now need to learn all these things. So it was great in that sense. But one thing I've never forgotten, even though I've been at Technolutions for almost 4 years now, is I'm never going to forget that I was just a regular user. And so everything I do today is driven by my desire to help people like me back in the day, to help the regular user. So while on a day-to-day basis, I talk to, Slate administrators, Slate captains a whole lot who know Slate, some who know Slate better than me, I still want to help the regular person use Slate in a more effective and efficient way. Yeah.
Yeah. And so a couple of things stand out to me as you tell your story. So first of all, there are two lessons that I hear from your refreshing the test environment that I want to just say out loud. Lesson one is if you're building a portal, it does not hurt to build that portal in production. So that is lesson one that I would always put out there. So for anybody out there who prefers to always work in test, that is not necessary for something like a portal, which can easily be deleted if you really don't like where it's going. But lesson two is just always check with other users before reprovisioning the test environment, right? So I'm sure you know these lessons now. I'm not telling them to you, but really for any listeners that are out there. So the other thing that comes to my mind as I listened to your story is you were a user, an end user who said, I want to do more. I want to do more. And, the reason I want to pause on that comment is I talk to so many schools all the time who have one captain, or maybe one half captain. And I always tell them to look for a person with that mindset in their office. There's almost always somebody there who's an end user who wants to do a little bit more. So if you find that person, if your captain can invest some time in training them, then it gives you a more solid backup plan. I mean, they're not going to learn everything related to cycle prep and everything else, but that's a person that I think has the right mindset to want to do more in Slate and can potentially become a super user or a captain down the road. So,
Definitely. And like what you're saying right now reminds me of a summit session that I moderated last year, this past summer, I guess. It was by Gonzaga University, where essentially they had an admission counselor there who kept asking the questions, who was just like me. And then they said, hey, go to Summit. So they sent him to Summit. What happened? He discovered query libraries at Summit. Fast forward to today, this counselor has gone ahead and built out query libraries for all staff members, trained all the staff members on configurable joins, and has set up a certification process for his team.
that's
So
amazing.
it's led by this counselor, not the captain. I guess the captain did have some input in this because I don't want to throw my friend on the bus. He did a great job. But it really comes down to this one particular counselor who took the initiative and asked to go to Summit, who then got the ability to, train the rest of his team on how to better use Slate and to make better informed decisions for everything they do. So if you are listening to this and you are a regular user and you want this world where you know how to use Slate in a better way, ask your captain, ask your administrator for more, for more.
Absolutely. Yeah, it'll benefit you, the listener who's hearing this right now, but it'll also benefit your entire team. So I know we went down a little bit of a rabbit hole there, but I think you had some really interesting things that came out of your story that I think are really important for us to just pause on and make sure we pull those out for our listeners. So I want to take a second then and kind of go back to your role in the Slate community. We've talked before on the podcast about the changes to the service desk and some of our other interviews, but I want to hear a little bit more about kind of your role and how you see the perks and the benefits of this transition to using the community a little bit more.
Sure. So back in the day when we were just on the service desk, it was it was more personalized in some ways, but also less personalized because you were dealing with a one-to-one sort of communication with a school, and you'd have 5, 6 schools submit a request on the exact same thing. How do I create an event, for example? That has happened before. 5 schools have asked on the same day, how do I create an event? And for each person, each school, you're typing pretty much the same response. This is how you do. Click here, click this, create a template, blah, 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 blah. And there came a point in time where this was causing the backlogs to happen, and people know about the backlog. People know that back in the day you had a significant wait time to get a response from Technolutions in many areas, and we wanted to address that, and then came the shift to the community forums model, where we are able to give the same answer to a much larger audience at one go. So now instead of someone 5 schools asking how do I create an event, one school is posting that in the community forums, but then my team, but also preferred partners, other schools can chime in as well. So it's a larger pool of people who can answer these questions, and it's not just restricted or reserved just for Technolution staff members to answer. So I think that's a great benefit in that sense. At that same point in time, though, before we even launched this new service model, this new support model, I had been pushing for, access, the ability to post in the Facebook group or comment in the Facebook
Mm,
group at least.
yes, yeah.
Um, and Trevor, who was my boss back then, he's now at the preferred partner. He gave me this one stipulation: if you do want to comment in there, you do have to say that you are Christopher from Technolutions here, and then you can type what you need to type. Bear in mind that you've now said, hey, you are from this company. And so I took that to heart. And for, 2, 3-ish years, I just started working in the Facebook group saying, hey, Christopher from Technolutions here. This is my response to you. Go here, go there, feedback requests, etc. And I think that has been part of the reason why a shift might have happened, because I was finding a lot of success there. I was able to help. I was able to help a ton of people there, and I think because of that, that's a big reason why our entire community support team now is in the Slack group as well. Just because we're able to be in there to provide more support in that sense. There's fewer of us still in the Facebook group, just because um, it's Facebook. It's a different sort of platform and beast altogether. Not everyone wants to use a personal account or create a different account, etc. For those of you who are in that group, that is my personal account. So I do have my own restrictions there. I don't accept direct messages there. If you want to direct message me, take it to the community forums. I'll answer you there. But you can tag me all you want, and I'll try to respond if it's something I can definitely help you with. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, as we are thinking about even the perks of having that Facebook group, you mentioned the backlog that was happening because people were putting in the same tickets.
Hmm.
But the other thing is you weren't able to see what else people were asking, so for users who might be asking, how do I create an event? You can do the search in the Facebook group, in the Slack group, in the community forums, and you're going to find all of this information, which before was kind of hidden behind the firewalls or behind the
Hmm.
platform that you all were using. And if you're asking that same question, where there's the same answer that's already out there and you're
Hmm.
able to access it so easily.
Yep, definitely. With 1900 plus schools using Slate, there's bound to be at least one other person who has that same thought as you. If there isn't, that must be a great question.
So, with all of this focus on the using the community, how do you think the community can help itself? So we've talked about the platforms, but how can it continue to grow?
So I think in many ways it comes down to how our community ambassadors have, and our community management team has really shaped the community forums itself. It's not just split off into the various life cycles, admissions, advancements, and success. There are also functional user groups, regional user groups, and getting involved in those areas. Every fall, late summer, I tune in, especially, for example, to the Common App user group, because that's the spot that I go to if I want to learn anything new about Common App, or if I have larger questions about how a massive institution with 16, 15, whatever databases is using Slate. I'm going to that Slate at Scale group. Or if I really want to connect with people from a certain region, I'm going to their regional user group and seeing what's being posted there. So there are those ways there they can definitely get involved. There, other ways they can definitely still continue to get involved, learn more, is accessing home Slate. So
Mhm.
if you use Slate and you haven't seen home Slate yet, it's that thing on the right bar that's on the bar on the right. You click that little home Slate button there. It'll take you to a different portal to show you all the offerings that Technotions has, and it'll show webinars, dive deeper sessions led by preferred partners, community conversations, community support conversations, which are slightly different. And it'll give you various resources that you can access, either live or on demand as well, which is kind of cool. It also exposes you to the world of Summit. Beyond this podcast, pretty much all I've been thinking about is Summit recently. um, so it gives you that ability to get to go there and learn more about what is possible there too. And it launches you into a whole different world where you realize that Slate is not just tied to your own individual institution, to your own one database, that there are other people out there who are experiencing the same thing as you who can help you as well.
Yeah, and I think we felt that sometimes in our initial Ohio Slate user group meetings. Sometimes it was just a place to go to say, I just need to pull my hair out, and I need to know I'm not
Mhm.
the only person pulling my hair out right now, by whatever it might have been that was frustrating, whether it was Slate related or campus politics or
Mhm.
getting change to happen on a campus,
Mhm.
knowing that you're not alone. I think is a huge part of the battle as we're in this ever evolving system and all of us trying to figure out how to help the schools, whether it's multiple schools or just your own school. So,
Definitely. I mean, there are tons of people out there shouting into the void, trying to get an answer, and in these spaces, a voice will answer them most of the
most of the time
time.
it's true. Sometimes they can get buried in there if there's
Yeah,
too many questions in one day, right?
exactly.
So speaking of questions, are there any questions that you will not answer in the forums on Facebook, on Slack?
Yeah, so questions that I won't answer, questions really that I um well, I feel there are people out there who can answer better than me. A big one, a big category out there I try to stay away from personally is branding. Um,
Yeah.
like I can definitely go in, mess with it, make some changes, but I personally have been burnt way too many times with the branding tool. Um, a great example for this is a couple weeks ago now, probably more than a month now. I had a community conversation that I was about to lead, and I decided an hour or so before it, let's update our branding in my own personal test environment. Because, why not? Let's just do this before I go on a conversation with, 150 people. Sure. Turns out that wasn't a great idea because I changed everything um in my own personal test environments. I changed all the branding to lime green, to the slate
Which
green
is a
color.
fun color,
Yeah, it was great. It was wonderful. And and then I realized that I had changed everything to that color. If you go through Slate, anywhere you see blue, that was green. And I started panicking. My background, the white background, green. Text boxes, green. Palettes, green. I was like, this is insane. This is way too much.
I think
And
that's for Martian University. Is that
yeah, I
where
know,
we'd go
right?
with that?
Probably, yeah. And you know, and it was at that point where I was like, I don't want to admit defeat. And I don't want to, you know, get the previous version of my branding, which I know worked perfectly fine. Um, so I sat there literally for half an hour just tinkering away with my branding tool, going, will this change to it? Will that change to it? And literally 5 minutes before that community conversation was meant to start, I updated it and it changed. It went perfectly. All the changes I wanted happened, and it was great. And I'm not touching that branding tool ever again. Um,
Smart choice.
yeah, but it's something that does take me a little bit more time to go through just because there's a lot of lines of code in the branding editor. So if it's a question asked in the Facebook group, Slack group, etc., by the time I'm even able to give you an answer, I'm 99% certain that someone else has already given you that answer. Um,
Yeah.
Straight up, that's how I view it. Now if it's a simple like one line code, I want to change the background color from this to this, yeah, sure, I'll go ahead and help you out there. But if it's like I want to update all my branding to this, yeah, I'm not gonna be your best bet there.
That is fair. I will also share I'm not in love with doing branding, but mostly because I hate having to clear my cache every
Hmm.
3 minutes to check to make sure it came through, and
Yep.
it is a slow, tedious process. So
Yes.
that is why we have other people on our team that are more inclined to want to do that work. So
Same.
it works, right? Getting back to some of those community conversations, what has been your favorite community conversation topic or topics?
Yeah. So there are a few. Typically people when they think Christopher, in community conversations, especially on my team at least, they think liquid markup. And yeah, I do enjoy liquid markup. I wouldn't say it's my favorite community conversation though, because I'm not really talking about Slate. I'm talking about a different language. I'm talking about templating language. So not it's not really my favorite in that sense. I think there are a couple out there. Um, a big one on the top of my head is the inventory management data set, Slate use case that I led a couple, I think around a year ago, where essentially I was able to create a tool to allow schools to better manage all the inventory they have, be it golf carts, view books, pens, pennants, A-frames, etc., chairs, coffee grounds, whatever you name it. It was all housed in Slate. And it was tied, and it was great in a sense because it was also, it allowed for schools to be able to message, email their suppliers to get more of whatever
Oh,
item
love
if it
that.
didn't work. It had a check-in, check-out system, had a return system. It allowed for staff members to request items. It had notification systems to the person in charge. So school created my test environment, so everything went to me. So it was great. But also since it's a test environment, nothing ever sent out. So it should have
Also
gone to
great.
me. Yeah. It it was designed in a way to ensure that if staff wanted to request something new, they could do so. If they wanted something sent to their hotel, it created a different alert for the staff member to know, hey, this might be a priority request to be sent to a hotel if they're on the road right now. So it was really great in that sense. And it was a topic that came out from the community where a few people in the community itself had expressed their different thoughts, their ideas, and opinions of this. And so I always give a shout out to this one person, Alex Sims from Mississippi State University, who gave me this original idea. So if you happen to ever go back in time and look through the Facebook threads and history and look up Alex Sims's inventory management data set structure, that is the backbone of how I started building it out.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah. But obviously I've taken a few things here and there from other people as well to make it a more robust system. But it definitely does work really well. Another thing that I've created that I really like is my tour guide management system, where essentially it's just a data set for tour guides, but it functions in conjunction with a portal to ensure that it builds community because I'm using liquid markup, dictionary subquery export to essentially output all tour guide information so they can get to know their peers as well. It also allows them to update their information, their extracurriculars, their schedule, clock in, clock out, etc. It has a feedback section, so it'd be sent to their director of tour guides, aka me again. Um,
You're a
to
busy
say,
guy.
I know, really busy in my test environment. I hold every single position at this fake university. To essentially say, hey, I have questions about anything, and it's a great way to use Slate in a better way to also advocate for student mental health.
Mhm.
So really was a big driving moment of that where I brought in my former experience managing tour guides into my current role. Um, so those are two off the top of my head. The last one that I really did enjoy was a ticketing system, creating
I love
ticketing
ticketing
systems.
systems.
Um, and really just because of the fact that you can do anything with the ticketing system. Like you could do it with an unmapped person scoped form and just say that is enough. That is all I ever need. Or you could go down the route of data sets,
Mhm.
entities, fancy stuff, calculation formulas, embedded data set row fields, whatever, and make it super cool. I felt like I just like spouted like a ton of random words.
I mean,
Um,
if I did not know Slate language, I would feel like you were speaking Jedi. So it's
yeah.
fair.
Yeah, so that was something that when I led that community conversation, I thought it was so broad because I had an hour to talk about, three different ways you could do ticketing. And no, there's no one right path for everyone. And that's something I've always harped on about any Slate use case that I lead, that this is just one way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
There are many ways you can do it. There are other tools within Slate that you can use to do things as well. So, for all the options that I mentioned, what's one thing I didn't mention that you could have used to make it better? Workflows. You could throw everything into workflow as well, make it better, make it more enhanced, tour guide applications, for instance, a review process for suppliers, um,
Mm-hmm.
a review process for tickets. Oh, wait, that's what ticketing is all about anyway. But you could do all these cool stuff like that. So I say those probably would be my top three things. But if you were to ask me, like, if I had a favorite community conversation on a module, it would have to be something super niche and narrow, like trips.
Trips.
Yeah,
Okay.
travel and expenses, trips. That would be my jam. Um, yeah, that's where I'm leaning today.
All right. Well, you know what I like about all of these is they all scream to me efficiency. And I this is something I encourage everyone to, whether it's a current partner or just a random listener on the podcast. But I always encourage people to sit down and say, where are you still using spreadsheets? Where are you not using Slate and spending a lot of extra time and energy trying to get things figured out? And I think everything you mentioned falls under that umbrella of these things increase efficiency when done right. All right, so now that we've heard about some of the really cool things that you've already built in Slate, do you have any bucket list projects that you want to do?
Yeah, so many. Um, so I'll start with the ones that make the most sense for the community. Um,
All right,
Housing.
that's fair. We'll go with the boring stuff. No, just kidding.
How Definitely something to do with housing. With the announcement that Alexander made at Summit last year, about event spaces, etc. I think there's really a spot now for housing to come into Slate in a great way where the I'm envisioning this. It's a custom data set for housing with event spaces. So the spaces are the number of beds per room, if it's a
Love that.
double, single, triple, quad, whatever. And then it's designed based on how the house looks. So if it's an apartment with 3 floors, you got all the different configurations there. But then it could also contain other like information through, an entity or just another tab or anything about, the different things in that space. So if it's an apartment, it has a bathroom, it has its own heating system, cooling system, etc. If it's a double, it has lights, I guess. Um,
Maybe a
uh,
computer desk.
yeah, something like the furniture that's in there, etc. as well. But it also then would allow for schools to have a maintenance system in place too.
Oh, I like that idea.
Yeah, so students could log in to Slate through a portal using their SSO, log in and submit maintenance requests. The maintenance staff could then access Slate. So be like, cool, this, little Johnny here in room 403B has said they want to do this. Let's go ahead and get this all logged in and let's go fix his bed or whatever. They can fix this and they can do all the cool stuff with that as well. It also would be a unique way to do housing lotteries or assign
Yeah.
housing to students because from my own personal experience going through college, uh, I hated having to pick housing. Um, I think the most traumatic experience I've ever had was picking housing my senior year.
Oh,
Because we
yeah.
were trying to get an apartment on campus. Um, Kenya requires housing for all 4 years. So on campus was your only option. And we're a group of 4 people and we had horrible numbers and we were just looking as more and more of those choice apartments were disappearing. And we were like, oh no, oh no. I had like number 71 or something, which is still pretty good.
Yeah.
But apparently 70 other people wanted houses with other people. So we got the last apartment. But doing that in Slate could also be a possibility as well. Once that new feature rolls out. So this bucket list idea is waiting that feature to come out. And then I'll start tinkering with it. So that's something I'm kind of excited about. Um, the other things that I'm excited about, bucket list things I want to do, are things I've been working on here and there already. And these are more just based on company culture, things I'm just interested in. One is March Madness bracket in Slate. Um, I feel like it's definitely possible with a
I
custom
I think
custom
there's a
data set
market for that.
entities. You could really build your own bracket there, and and then since a data set, you could have everyone submit their own data set entry, compare your brackets, come up with a winner that way. I want to also create, a pool or for like fantasy football or something for college football playoffs. So I think there could be a path there to create that whole um, ranking system in Slate, to create all the different power conferences as well. Shout out to the Pac-12, Pac-2, whatever you want to call it. Um, that's all possible, I feel like, in Slate through data sets, entities, portals. You know, if someone wants to work on this with me after listening to this, reach out to me. I am more than happy to devote a couple minutes here and there to start tinkering with this
I
on
think a lot
this.
of people would have fun with that. I think
Yeah,
it's a good way during yield season, especially in admissions,
yeah,
to get a little bit of fun in there. Not that yielding students isn't fun, but
no.
it's a different kind of fun.
And honestly, these two ideas really came about because of the fact that I started thinking about them at the point in time where I was answering the same question over and over again. Um, so I wanted to do something different, something fun, and shake it up a little bit. One thing that going off topic a little bit, one thing I've done, I've already built, flushed out completely, more or less, that I'm really proud of, that used to be a bucket list item of mine, was creating a library in Slate. And so what that really is, it's a data set um, that is that is pulling data from the Library of Congress.
I love this
So it's
idea.
it's pulling in all their Library of Congress codes, essentially saying this code belongs to this book, etc. And then I've created an entity with that, so I can leave reviews for these books, and it's tied to my records, so my records can leave book reviews as well. So I can know, cool, I've read 5, 6, 24 books this year. Wonderful in that sense. I'm still trying to figure out how I can tie Goodreads into this as well, but haven't made that connection yet. But it's definitely just another sort of edge case out there. If you wanted people to be able to do book counts or book reviews for the year. So I want to say really is that, if you have a weird, wacky, wild idea, Slate has some ways to do some of these things.
Right.
It's not just restricted to admissions, advancement, student success. There is also other.
Yes. Yeah. And as there's days where I start thinking about like, could we use this in some of the other things that I do outside of work? And the answer
Mhm.
is yes. I just don't think I can pitch having somebody buy another instance of Slate for these ideas that I
Yeah.
want to do. But I think playing with it and doing some of these creative ideas that aren't necessarily tied to admissions help us, or tied to student success, admissions, or advancement, I should say. Uh, it helps us think more creatively about the other things we can do in our own
I mean,
processes.
I saw recently someone posted in the Slack group that they originally wanted to use Slate to manage their community pool. So you really could do anything with Slate if you really wanted to, and if you wanted to purchase a database for that.
Yeah, sure, right? It's a community pool that's doing very well. So
Yes.
All right. So we talked about your bucket list. We've talked about the projects you've done. What we haven't touched on yet, we did a little bit. You mentioned the event spaces being a favorite new feature.
Mhm.
But do you have any other features that maybe are coming out or have just come out that you got really excited to talk about?
Google Sheets, Excel, Live Sync. Um,
I think I can hear
because
people clapping
yeah,
as you're saying that one.
because back in the day when I worked in admissions. I did so many exports to Excel, and I'd realize 5 minutes in, oh, nope, I need this other field. Export it back out. Oh, nope, I need this thing. Export it back out. I don't need this. Take it out. That was a little bit easier, taking stuff out. But it got to the point where in my downloads folder, I had like 15 downloads from the last hour. And I was like, okay, which one was the one I actually need? Who knows? And so when they released that, I tested it out and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. All I need to do is have that web service. And once the code's there, I click refresh. It's there. Oh wait, I
Magic.
forgot a field. Updated in Slate. Go back to Excel, click refresh. Oh my gosh, it's there. Yeah, I think when I first tested it out, I like kind of like gave out like a happy yelp in a way. Because I was trying not to be like overly excited because I think I was testing it at like 7 in the morning or 8 in the morning my time, and my family is still asleep. I don't want to wake everyone up. So I had to keep my excitement down to a minimum. But I was thrilled when I got it to work because it was something different. It's exciting, and I could see it work live in Excel. And I feel like there are people out there who are equally excited about this. I'm thinking about everyone who uses, Tableau, Power BI. They want to get all this data out there. You can now do so in such a great, more or less seamless way, which
Yeah.
is wonderful. Um, so that feature definitely was one that is high up there for me. I mean, I feel like everyone's going to say this, copy paste queries. Yeah, because there have been so many times where I've been building a query and then I'm like in the nested subquery export, and I'm like, oh, this needs to be one layer deeper.
Yep.
And then so
Yes.
in the past, you'd have to like scrap the whole thing, start from the beginning again, and start mapping it out. And now you can just copy paste, copy paste. It's great.
So we've touched on Summit a little bit,
Hmm.
but I think in your seat, you're probably always planning for Summit, even while you're at Summit. I know that's how I feel when I'm doing any kind of event work. So what are you looking forward to most as we think about Vegas 2025?
Vegas, no, Summit 2026. Just kidding.
Right. I was like, wait, what? What did I miss?
No, I think for Summit 2025, what I'm really looking forward to is that third day. It's going to give me time to breathe, take it in, and really get more involved in the community. This past year with the level of work that I was doing, the new role that I had at Summit. I'm not going to say what I did, but a lot of you know who I was at Summit. What I was at Summit, I guess. Um, but it meant that I had a lot of time not with spent not with the community, but still in the community, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yes.
Um, and I think with the third day, I'll have more time to have those, one-on-one conversations with schools. Thinking back to Nashville, um, the first Nashville conference, I think, no, the second one, I believe, where we had, a lounge, space for people to come. Technolution staff members were there, able to answer questions, to talk about the different life cycles. Like that was something I really enjoyed. Um, because it had me still thinking about Slate
Yes.
versus are all the signs looking right, or anything like that.
Which is a fun thought,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
not.
yeah. And it's so I'm really looking forward to the ability to connect more, to network more, to build more connections. I'm also excited as well about the fact that Slate.org Summit and Summit are running concurrently together.
Oh, okay. I
Um,
hadn't even noticed that yet.
yeah, so they're running at the same time. And what that really means is that the party, which is now on Wednesday, um, if I am remembering this correctly, um, is going to be filled with not just Slate users, but also Slate.org users. And as someone formerly from admissions from higher ed, I have a lot of friends on the other side of the desk.
Yeah.
And at Technolutions, I haven't had the chance to see them in a work setting in 4 years. And so I'm personally excited to just be able to see these people again. I've had a few of them reach out to me already saying, "Hey, I've already signed up." I'm like, it just went live like 2 days ago, but okay, 3 days ago. Okay, great. Let I'll see you in a couple months, I guess. But just being able to connect with people who I haven't talked to in a long time is also gonna be exciting for me. I think I'm also just thrilled about the fact that we have more session opportunities as well. We're going up from 70-ish sessions to, hopefully, if my math is right, around 100 or so sessions, or 100 different opportunities to have sessions or affinity groups. So it's a lot more um, that's being offered. So I'm excited in that sense. So if you're listening to this and you were only planning on sending one person, maybe it's time to start thinking about sending one or two more, just because of the number of sessions that are going to be offered.
Yeah, I think that is a great point. And as every school has to think about professional development dollars, and you're thinking about where you want to spend them, knowing that there's going to be more opportunity to see so much more, and being
Hmm.
able to quantify that, I think is really helpful as you're talking to your leadership to say there's going to be so many more opportunities
Hmm.
for us to continue to learn. And I think the other piece that comes as a positive for that is by spreading it out over 3 days. I always feel like it's like drinking from a fire hose, and it'll still be drinking from a fire hose, but you'll be able to give yourself a little bit more time to pause and kind of debrief after each time, if that makes sense, each
Definitely, and
day.
you'll have more time to do other things as well. Like, I I feel like last year I didn't have enough time personally to go to every single preferred partner in the showcase section, to build upon my existing connections. Like, I don't think I saw you at your table last year. Uh,
I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, which is normal for me at Summit. So
so yeah, I feel like I only stopped at like 10, 15 tables, whereas with a third day, I could probably do 40, 50 tables maybe. Still not all, but I can definitely get to more and build more connections with more people as well. So there are going to be more opportunities for people to mingle with uh, other users, preferred partners, people from the high school side, etc., to mingle with technician staff members as well, but also to get stuff out of Vegas too. I mean, Vegas is definitely a fun city. Um, there's a lot to do. So if you don't want to sleep between the party and the first session the next day, I'm pretty sure Vegas will stay up with you.
I think though then you might have a little bit more trouble as you're fighting with your CFO to be able to justify it.
Hey, I was building a portal at 3 in the
Right.
morning at this spot.
Right. You can see it on the casino cameras. Wait, what? Um, so I am super excited about the summit in 2025 and seeing how many more cool sessions are out there. But also, as you said, the chance to connect with other people, I think is so huge. I love being able to go and talk to people I already know and meet people I've never met before. And I think that's one of those amazing things about Summit. And because you're seeing so many people from so many different, uh, you get a lot of Slate captains, but you also get leadership. You also get some admission counselors. And I think that's getting everyone together in that same space is so helpful. Where, while I went to NACAC, I love NACAC, I don't get to see as many of our Slate super users out there. It
Mhm.
tends to be a different mix of people. So, between both of them, I guess I get my fill.
I guess really, if there is someone on your campus who loves Slate, who uses Slate a lot, then Summit is probably the best conference for them to be at, because they're surrounded by their community. and they're in a place where they can get ideas to enhance your database, to enhance your instance. I've talked to schools before where they build, pre-summit checklists of like
Hmm.
they want to have conversations about X, Y, Z, and they want to make sure that they talk to these people. They've outlined it in advance. We must talk to Alexander. Must talk to a preferred partner about this thing. I must go to Slate After Dark to submit this idea, etc. Um, but there are also the opportunities there to be like, oh wow, I never thought about this thing, let's do
Hmm.
this instead. Let's pivot. And it does give you that excitement. It is in some ways I've pictured Summit in some ways as a version of Disneyland
Oh,
where
I like that.
where you get that excitement, you get that buzz, get that thrill of seeing, Walt's work come to life. That's Slate to me in some ways. I get to see what you've all done come to life. So, some of you might be Epcot for me, some of you might be, just pure straight Disneyland. It's a great vibe nonetheless, where I'm exploring and learning different things and how you all use it differently. But it's all
I
under
love
the
it.
one brand, Slate. It's great.
Like, I love it all. Yeah. And you're not paying for separate park admissions. So that's
Yeah.
another win. So, just one big amusement park with all your slatest friends all the time. Um, so outside of answering the questions on the Facebook group,
Mhm.
what do you enjoy doing for fun?
Sure. So um I'm a dad to two lovely little girls. They're 3 and 1 right now. So one's learning to ask why for everything.
Oh,
So, the other day it was like, we're going to the park. Why? Because we need to go for a walk. Why? Okay, let's keep going on this path. And then we went down to like existentialism and life and death and everything. I was like, eh, at that point, I was just saying random nonsense, but she just kept going, why? 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 It was wonderful. And then my other daughter, she's learning how to walk, learning how to fall on her face. And that's great too. But together both of them do take up my time outside of work. That in conjunction with obviously my wife, my 3 dogs. I have 3 dachshunds. Um, so they're all a lot to wrangle sometimes as well. But then beyond that, I've started teaching my oldest CJ's, starting teaching her how to build events, build portals, etc. Because hopefully one day she gets to work with you all in Slate. So
so I just
um,
want to rewind on that. Did you just say that you're teaching your 3-year-old daughter how to build queries and configurable joins?
yes, she can build a query already. She knows how to build a person-based query to search for person status and filter on a rank 1 address.
That is amazing.
She can't do
So,
anything else, but she can do that.
I feel like that would be a hit on like every community conversation. Or maybe it might make people not feel great about themselves. Never mind. Like, if they're struggling with configurable joins, they'll be like, "Oh no, a 3-year-old could get it." Um, but no, that it's teachable, right?
Uh, anyway, I've joked with other people in the past where we've been like, let's just do a little video of all of our kids using Slate and how they all use Slate, and it'll get everyone on board with using Slate. But obviously, might not make some people feel too great. They still haven't mastered configurable joins yet.
And I want to say for people who feel like they struggle with configurable joins, it is okay. So it just takes a lot of time and practice. And I suppose it's like teaching a language, right? It's
Hmm.
easier to learn at a younger age. Now, granted, most people don't even know about Slate until they're post college or in
Yeah.
college. But at the same time, it's really just thinking about a computer language, no different than thinking about Spanish or French or, whatever other language might be out
Very,
there.
very true. And, kids at that age are like sponges. They absorb everything. And they also don't have to deal with a full-time job, other commitments as well. They just are there. So, if anyone here, anyone listening ever has a meeting with me, my daughter's usually listening on the side, learning and soaking up information as well. So it's great.
She's gonna know everything about college admissions by the time she's 10. That's
She she has books and everything. My wife is a former high school counselor, so she has both sides of the desk to lean on.
I love it. No, so all right. Well, we are down to our last question, and I'm going to give full credit to Katie Jordan, who is not able to join us for this interview today. And once I ask it, you will know that it is a Katie Jordan question. And the question is, what are the odds of getting Christopher from Technolutions here swag?
The best way to get that to become a reality is to have Katie post that in the feedback forums. Um, but it's been brought up before. I've raised that question several times with people on several teams. Be like, there's this brand here that doesn't really exist, but also still exists. Can we do something with it? And I get chuckles here and there, but it's a conversation. We still have
Right?
time. Summit is, still a couple hundred days away. We have time. So whoever's listening to this, put it in feedback. Don't all put it in the same time, but let's get there.
Yeah, we don't want to take a gamble on it for Summit next year. I'm sorry, I'm going to try to come up with more Summit related puns and the Vegas Summit puns over the next year. This is where I'm starting with is
Yeah. Don't put all your chips on red.
right. Yeah. Um, anyway, so that was the last official question. So, what I will say is, we always like to give our guests space to say anything else that they might have missed or anything you want the Slate community to know before we wrap up this call.
I think the big thing to take away is that myself and a lot of people on my team, we really do listen and we really are there to help you. So if you are asking questions and you're not getting those answers, chances are you are posting on a platform that we're not on, or you're posting it in the wrong way. So rethink your question always. The other thing to think about is if you're asking something super generic, um, we also want to think about why you're asking this question. So if you can share, your end goal, if it's, I want to learn where is the create event button? What sort of event are you trying to create down there? What are you trying to do? What's your end goal here? Because that allows us to spend more time helping you fulfill and vision your dreams, um, or your goals at least. Um, in Slate, it's something I've always harped on is like I can answer your simple question, but if you have something more in the back of your head that you're trying to get the answer to, it's best to let me know this in advance so I can help you out.
All right. I love that. So Christopher, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. And thanks to our listeners for listening. This has been Accelerate Slate, an EnrollmentFUEL podcast. And we have been here with Christopher Kwan. So thank you so much. And everyone have a great day.